Wow, what a freaking game that was, huh? 41-28, Kansas City over the Broncos. Who would have thought that would be such an exciting game? There were times where I legitimately thought that the Broncos might actually pull off the upset in that game, especially after that 148-yard play by that one running back out of the three. That was insane. I have no clue what happened last night. It is prior to Thursday night, and we're going to look at my Week 6 rankings, but this video will be coming out on Friday morning, so I hope it was a good game. How did my prediction go? Predictions. There were a few in there. We will go through my rankings in order of my tiers, or as I have them tiered this week, and you can also see my projections, and you can find all of this up on the website at www.theFFForge.com. There's a link down in the description. Up above me, you can also see the website domain. And there are descriptions in other videos of mine as to exactly what you're looking at in this video, but I think it's a pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, instead of a single numbered projection, I'm giving you a range. Think of it between a below average to an above average game. What is the expectation for this player in this matchup this week, given what they've done so far this season and given what that defense has done so far this season? Let's recap how I did in week 5 with my love'ems, my fade'ems, as well as my DFS buys, which I'll give you some at the end of the video. I also keep forgetting to say, please like, comment, and subscribe. I keep that at the end of the video, but obviously the least people make it to the end of these videos. And come visit me live 1 hour prior to kickoff for the main slate of games for any start-sit questions that you have on Sunday. You can also see my final rankings there, but once again, they're always up on the website and they get updated throughout the week. And you can also visit me now a half hour, maybe even longer, prior to the early game on Sunday morning, the overseas game. I will be here as well then. Back to the DFS buys. Last week, I thought that Sam Laporta at 5,000 DK bucks was a good buy, and he finished as the tight end 5, but it was a really good tight end 5 performance. I think I nailed that one. Then in the discount bin, I found you Zach Ertz at $3,500. He finished as the tight end 16 because it was one of those super rare weeks for him where he only had 4 targets, but he did catch 2 of them. He did get a touchdown with one of those receptions. It could have been better. Probably didn't help you too much, but didn't really hurt you at least. And in the contrarian play, I gave you Tyler Conklin at 3,200 bucks, so a little bit cheaper than Zach Ertz, and he finished better on the week. He had a tight end 12 finish, so I would say that that was a decent success there for the cost. Going back to Zach Ertz, he was also a love-em of mine last week, and part of the reason guys can be a love-em sometimes is because even if they miss their ceiling, I like their floor, and Zach Ertz hung in there with 8 fantasy points, giving you a tight end 13 finish in half PPR. I know I said 16 earlier because that's on DK, that's full PPR. I work from half PPR. So, gave you a solid finish. He did not kill you. And for my fade'em, I gave you George Kittle. We're on to my week 6 rankings, and these are my must-start guys once again this week. I have Travis Kelce in here. He played last night. How did he do? Hopefully, well, if he played. He may not play, and so that will bring one extra tight end into the fold here in these rankings. Unfortunately, you will have had to have gone and looked up on the website to find out where I had him prior to the game being played. Then TJ Hawkinson is at my tight end number 2, followed by Mike Andrews and Sam Laporta. Let's move on to my second tier, and these are like the good starts, maybe not quite must-start guys. Starting off at tight end number 5, we have Evan Ingram, and I pretty much have something to say about everyone in these next 2 tiers, so except for like one guy. So let's go. Evan Ingram, tight ends have been targeted the 4th most against the Colts, the opponent of Evan Ingram this week. And they're the team who has allowed the most fantasy points on average to tight ends out of all the teams who have not allowed a touchdown to the tight end position yet. So they're just hanging in there by a thread, and they're not even that great of a defense against tight ends. In fact, I would argue that they're probably a pretty good defense to target for tight ends. Then Dallas Goedert is going up against the New York Jets this week, and they are allowing an average of 1 touchdown per game to the tight end position. There is only one other team that's allowing more than an average of 0.6 touchdowns per game to the tight end position, 0.8 touchdowns for that team. So Dallas Goedert's a good, solid bet this week. In at tight end number 7, we have George Kittle, and Cleveland is fantastic against wide receivers, and outside of the red zone, they've also been really good against tight ends. Not so much in the red zone, at least. There are a lot of parallels, I believe, between how one would go about attacking Dallas's defense and how they might go about attacking Cleveland's defense. That could work for better or for worse for San Francisco, having just possibly put their plan of attack on tape, but also they got Kyle Shanahan, so I think they'll be all right. Regardless, I think that we could see Kittle utilized similarly. He is definitely a risky start. This is a very tough defense to throw against, but I think that he might pull it off again this week in some sort of similar fashion, probably not to the same extent, of course. And then we have Cole Kmet in at tight end number 8. The experts continue to disrespect Cole Kmet, which is so weird to me, because coming into the season, I was lower on Cole Kmet than the experts. And ever since, I think it's been week 3, so for the past 3 weeks, I have been shocked at where Cole Kmet has been getting ranked, considering some of the numbers for him so far this season. And it's pretty much been working in my favor. He keeps climbing up the rankings every week, but still, I think that he's not really getting respected. Minnesota is one of the better matchups around the league for receivers of any type, wide receivers, tight ends, a running back, anyone. So I agree with the projections there and the temperature gauge on Cole Kmet. I think he is a strong start this week. And Logan Thomas I have in at tight end 9. Teams have attacked Atlanta's defense through the tight end position with relative success so far this season, and I don't think that Logan Thomas's workload is going anywhere. You would definitely know that if you've seen me talk about him in the past. Then at tight end 10, we have Darren Waller, and the juju all around Darren Waller this week is terrible, and he's a guy who I wanted to like coming into the week, but he's going to end up being a fatum for me. Things that working up against him, the matchup. Buffalo's defense has allowed the 3rd least fantasy points on a weekly basis to the tight end position, and Darren Waller is dealing with yet another injury that may end up keeping him out altogether this week. And to top that off, if he is playing this week in a bad matchup, he very well may not have his starting quarterback at the helm, so I'm altogether probably just going to put him on my bench. Even if Danny Dimes is playing and he's playing, hopefully I have somebody else that I feel pretty confident in and start them. Like, I just don't feel good about it for Darren Waller this week. Then Jake Ferguson, you got to like the upside in what could become a shootout for Dallas versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Then we have Zach Ertz to wrap this second tier up at tight end 12. The Rams have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends on a weekly basis. And in one way or another, Zach Ertz has largely come through for you the entirety of this season, so I see no reason to think that he won't have at least a decent game yet again. That's going to bring us to our 3rd tier of tight ends, and I got a long name for this tier. Put them out there and hope for the best. There is no reason to scramble and replace them. These are the guys who I'm still comfortable starting. They're not my strong starts, but if I have them and they're my only option, I'm not going to scramble to replace them. And that starts off with Kyle Pitts in at tight end 12. Surprisingly, he is now the 14th tight end on the season via my EV system, and we saw himself and this passing offense show some life last week. Maybe that can continue against the Commanders this week. And it seems that based on the projections especially, we are reaching a pivot point in the season where Kyle Pitts may now be becoming the better option over Jonnu Smith going forward. But for the most part, Jonnu Smith has been the better tight end this season to date. However, like I said, things might be a-changing, and so my projections, I kind of just trusted them on this and took the slightly better floor. They have the exact same, these aren't floors and ceilings, but lower end expected range compared to the higher end expected range, and there is a correlation usually between these expected ranges and their floors and their ceilings, of course. Then at tight end 15, we have Hunter Henry, and he's going up against the Raiders. They're never a bad matchup to have a player going up against, unless you're a wide receiver for the Packers. then it might be. At tight end 16, we got Noah Gray. Kansas City went against Denver last night. This was my ranking for him if Kelce did not play. That is all. Moving on to tight end 17, we have Cade Otton. A love him for me this week, going up against the Detroit Lions. And the Lions may, in fact, be the best matchup for tight ends in the entirety of the NFL so far this season for fantasy purposes. They have allowed the second most fantasy points to this season, so it's really not a stretch to think that they might be one worse than that. Teams have targeted their tight ends against the Lions the most out of any defense in the league. That is 9.8 targets against the Lions via the tight end position on average on a weekly basis. They also have allowed the most yards per reception to the tight end position, and this is by quite a large margin, especially compared to the majority of the league. But even their 7.4 yards per reception allowed to the tight end position is still 0.6 yards larger than the second worst team in this category, 6.8 yards. And then we have another big jump to 6.2 yards, 5.8, 5.8, 5.6. There's a few other teams at 5.6, and it's downhill from there. So this 7.4 is a pretty big number to be allowing to tight ends, and I think that this could be a Cade Otton day, baby. So I love him against Detroit Lions this week. Dawson Knox. I'm expecting Dalton Kincaid to be missing this week due to his concussion, and they're facing the New York Giants, who have not allowed a lot of efficiency to opposing tight ends, nor have they allowed a touchdown. Still, I like the odds of Knox finding the end zone once or twice against this Giants defense with no Kincaid out there. Of course, the odds of finding the end zone twice aren't great. I'm just saying it feels like it could be that kind of game for Knox. To me, it's a gut thing. I think that he could Knox it out of the ballpark this week. Get it? All right, Noah Fant in at tight end 19. I said that I liked him a lot on the waiver wire show this week, and I don't exactly know why I said that. I'm not sure exactly what stuck out to me. That I was like, oh, yeah, I like him. But my gut instinct was, I think, correct on this. Not too shabby. The Bengals have allowed the third most fantasy points to the tight end position on average on a weekly basis so far this season. Bring us to Tyler Conklin in at my tight end 20. Philadelphia is a good matchup, who they're going up against, but it's always tough to trust Zach Wilson against a stud pass rush like Philadelphia has. Sometimes he sees ghosts, and Halloween is quickly approaching. Then in at tight end 21, we have Tyler Higbee. And I already downgraded him rest of season last week due to Cooper Kupp returning, and Arizona has allowed the fifth least fantasy points to the tight end position so far this season on a weekly basis, as is always. And so I'm not too excited about Higbee this week, but it is against Arizona, so, there's always a chance he could get a touchdown and a few receptions. Then Dalton Schultz in at tight end 22, and New Orleans is the single worst matchup for tight ends so far via the average fantasy points scored against that defense. It's a really, really bad matchup for Dalton Schultz. And at tight end 23, we have Gerald Everett, and looking at this honestly, I think that I should have him ranked higher. So we will move him up to, I think we'll keep him behind Conklin for now. So moving him up to tight end 21 for me. I am cool with Gerald Everett's floor, but I'm not so excited about the ceiling with the return of Eckler. Almost certainly the return of Eckler. If Eckler does not return, I'll be much higher on Gerald Everett than this. Regardless, he is still a solid play going up against Dallas this week. No need to replace him if you have him. That is it for my tight end rankings. No, it's not. We've got more just in case for you deep leaguers or whatnot. Here's the rest of the rankings. You can always find these up on the website if you want to look at them closer. But Taysom Hill, David Njoku, Kylan Granson, Hayden Hurst, Donald Parham Jr., Chig Ozium Okonkwo, Durham Smythe, Mike Gesicki, Greg Dulcich, Colby Parkinson, Josh Oliver, and Dalton Kincaid. Not ranked for Dalton Kincaid. Then for the DFS options this week, I'm going to give you for a good buy. I think TJ Hawkinson at 6,600, the most expensive for the main slate tight end that is available. I think that is basically a pay up or shut up week at the tight end position. I don't really care to save $1,000 for some of those tight ends immediately below him. The Mark Andrews don't really like this week as far as the ceiling goes. Sam Laporta, kind of similar, maybe not the best matchup in the world. and that kind of is a trend going down. Evan Ingram might be worth it, but I didn't feel like there's much of a deal there compared to the ceiling that TJ Hawkinson might offer in this matchup against Chicago without any Justin Jefferson on the team. Really like that ceiling, and 6,600 is not too expensive. Then in the discount bin at $3,200 for the week, I went with my love who was Cade Otton, baby. Let's go. Then for my contrarian play for the tight ends at $2,500, so I really dug into the discount bin for this one. Josh Oliver actually was a surprising projection. I mean, look at this ceiling, or this higher end of this expected range for him, 6.9 points. I mean, that's higher than Noah Fant. That's not maybe saying a whole lot, but up there with Cade Otton, my love of the week. It's a not too bad for him. He has a touchdown on the season. He has been involved 3 out of 4 weeks or 4 out of 5 weeks in the offense to some extent. And I just have a feeling this week going up against Chicago, maybe there will be more 2 tight end sets. They might focus on the running game, rushing attack more, might not feel like they have to open up this offense against Chicago, depending on how the game goes. But I think that that's probably going to be the plan going in, and that might see Josh Oliver get a little bit more work, and where he can really be a threat, I think, is in the red zone as the guy that you just kind of forget about. And so maybe he could sneak in for 2 touchdowns and really piss off everybody who's betting on the Minnesota offense this week by stealing those touchdowns, but leave one person in this world happy, and that person can be you for the low price of 2,500 DK bucks. That is it. Thank you very much. Over 400 subscribers, freaking awesome. I love it. I'm trying to think of doing something to say thank you, some kind of giveaway or something in the future, but starting to try to think of a plan. Bye-bye.